Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have way too much free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Today's ink. Waterman, yep. Some people still call it Florida Blue. Technically the name has been changed to Serenity or Serenity. Sorry, my French is about as good as my Japanese, or Greek, or anything else, except maybe Italian. And it's a very simple blue. And here's the chromatography. I sort of don't know what to make of this ink. I understand why a lot of people use it as like an experimental ink, like, you know, if they're trying out a new pen, or if they're trying to sort of set a standard bar to compare one thing to another, because this is a very, well, honestly, it's a very uninteresting ink. If you're trying to demonstrate the best qualities of a pen, this ink will definitely make a pen look more interesting, I'll tell you that much, because if you look at this little swab I have on top of the bottle, it's a really watery blue. And I don't mean that it looks like water, I mean it's really watery. It's very thin ink, not just this bottle, but the bottle I had before, which I used to make other blues because I didn't really like it on its own. If you lay it on thick, then you get some color and some difference and some activity, but otherwise it's just this pale, uninteresting blue, and it doesn't shade very well unless you lay it on really thick and really wet, which granted is exactly how I like my pens, but an ink shouldn't only look good in one specific type of nib. But anyways, on to the test. Here's Clairefontaine 90 grams per square meter. This is a different size paper, but hopefully you'll bear with me. I used a Hero 616 that I sort of broadened and stubbed myself because I've learned from past tests that it's harder to show on camera the details of an ink with a fine nib. As you can see, dry time was kind of on the long side. It didn't bleed, feather, or spread. That's a Sharpie, so just ignore that. But yeah, so here I laid it on really thick, and you get some character, but it's still kind of a flat, thin blue. Next is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter. Again, not a great deal of shading. 18 seconds to dry instead of 20. Admittedly, part of why I decided to test this ink is because it's so prevalent on other pen tests and things on the internet, and I sort of wanted people to know what it would be like to use it as a daily writer, which I don't terribly enjoy because I don't find it to be a terribly interesting ink. Here's Tomoe River, which can bring out the best of things, and here it did kind of, it brought out halo sheen. But if you have to use this kind of paper and a really broad pen and a really wet nib and it takes 30 seconds to dry, I don't know how I feel about an ink like that. But anyways, maybe I can catch some of this halo sheen. It's up there in Hero. Maybe I can get it on camera. It doesn't want to come through too well. But anyways, I do like it on Tomoe River because it seems to dry almost with an outline of darkened ink, where it's sort of a little bit lighter in the center and then on the outside. But again, then you need to use sort of a broader, wetter nib, because this ink is temperamental in the weirdest ways. Or temperamental, it's only interesting in extreme situations. Now, this is 20-pound copy paper, and it still took 16 seconds to dry. Now, this is a wet nib, but it's not that wet. I mean, this is the same nib that I used for my Sailor ink tests, and on the same paper, it took only 5 seconds to dry for one, and only 4 for another. So why did it take 16 to dry for this ink? And that's not unusual. Like when I've used it on copier paper before, it takes unusually long to dry. Now, Mead notebook paper, the feathering was atrocious to the point where it actually made it very distracting to try and read. Did not like it. Also made it very flat. I thought it was just a bad combination. Just bad all over. And it tends to bleed like this even on finer nibs, I've noticed on this paper. So using a finer nib won't really fix the problem too much. The water test was atrocious, as you might be able to see. It exploded and actually rendered parts of it. If I had been writing at a normal size, it would have been unreadable. And lastly is moleskin paper. So again, I felt that this was just too explosive. It got too broadened. I did not like it. I did not think this was a good combination. You didn't get halo, you didn't really get much of anything good. The spread was so extreme that if you had been writing with a finer nib and if you did have small handwriting, it would just become a disaster. The bleed through was incredible. I even tried writing on the opposite side of the page to see if maybe I would get a better result on the laid side or the unlaid side, but it spread and it exploded. It did just as poorly. It was not good. So that's my review of Waterman's Florida Blue, or Serenity, or Serenity. I don't find it to be a terribly interesting ink. I find it's too temperamental, it takes too long to dry, it's too thin. To get it to be a more vibrant color, or even just an enjoyable color, because you don't always want something that's as bright as Bay State Blue, but this made me feel like the ink was falling asleep. I mean, it was just rather dull. It's well behaved, it's easy to clean, it's got very predictable flow, all that stuff. So I understand if you're using it to test out a pen. However, to test out paper, I would not recommend it because I feel like this does not act the way the average ink will act. So that's my review. Let me know what you think. Why don't you share your own personal experiences and opinions with me, so long as they're polite. And hopefully I'll see you again soon on the Triple N Network. Have a good day. Bye.